The inmate is moved the night before to the death cell.
A 13-year-old collecting money for her paper route.
I don't hear any speaking. I don't hear anything.
The 13-year-old newspaper carrier disappeared.
We went through storage sheds. We went through everything on the property.
She had been suffocated and sexually molested.
You're listening to True Crime Arizona, the podcast.
Oh, be careful, honey. Oh, be careful, honey.
2 hours away from city life in Phoenix, on a quiet road nestled in the woods, you'll find a quaint house called
Christie House in the Pines.
Christie House in the Pines.
There are a lot of butterflies around here.
Oh, yes, there are.
All over.
And that started way, way back before Christie even died.
Carol and Roger Fornoff's home in Pine, Arizona is lined with pictures of their family, wooden signs with messages of hope, and some of their most cherished belongings framed on the wall. One of those, a Mother's Day letter.
I found this after Christie died, and it was dated May 9th, 1980. She died May 9th, 1984. And it's butterflies up here, if you can see that, and it says it's a Mother's Day thing. Dear Ma, I would like you to be my very best mother forever, and if there's any work, I would be glad to do it. I appreciate the things that you've done for me. Love, Christie. It's very precious to me.
Christy Ann Fornoff was just 13 years old in 1984.
Oh my. Christie was, we had 7 children. Christie was the outgoing child. She was the one who charmed people.
Just a happy little girl.
Her independence and bubbly personality got her a job early on as a local paper girl in Tempe, Arizona.
She just liked her job. She really did. And Sunday morning, those big paper, when they're so big, Roger, mostly him, me occasionally would take our station wagon and throw the papers in the back and would go with the kids.
They jumped on and off the tailgate in those days.
In the 80s, this was pretty normal for kids to be on a paper route, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, and now collecting.
There was responsibility, financial learning, how to count money,
May 9th began like any other day. Her siblings had gone to their friends' houses, so Christy was spending time with her mom that evening.
She said, Mom, you know what? I have someone I need to collect from. They told me to come back. And then there's people where I'm supposed to ask them if they want to sign up for the paper. Well, I'll just go with you.
The complex wasn't far from their home.
She jumped on her brother's bike. We had our little doggie, Peppy. I just walked alongside of her, and we got to the apartment complex, and some lady was out, and she said, oh, what a cute little dog, and I'm a sucker for that, So Christy said, Mom, after a few minutes, I'm going to go. You know where I'm going to go. You know the couple that lives around the corner. Yes, I know where you are, honey. I'll meet you there in a few minutes. I don't know, I just had this edgy feeling like, I don't even know this lady I'm talking to. I said, it was nice talking to you. I have to meet my daughter. So I went to that apartment complex, and Jason's bicycle was outside the gate, and I just kind of stood there at first and listened. I don't hear any speaking. I don't hear anything. And I got nervous. The dog got nervous. Knock on the couple's door, and I said, Christie's bicycle is out here. Do you know where she is? Well, she was here. We didn't have money, so we told her we just didn't have it right now. And I said, well, that's a while back already. I could call her name. It was getting a little bit darker, and I yelled, Christy, where are you? I didn't go up to the house. I don't know why, but I didn't. So we ran home.
Fear could be felt around town. Christy Ann Fornoff was missing. Everyone was looking for the little girl that seemingly vanished into thin air. The apartment's maintenance man, 29-year-old Don Beatty, offered his help in the search right away.
So he just really embedded himself with the investigation to help.
Oh, yeah.
He was doing interviews. He was...
We went through storage sheds. We went through everything on the property.
Carol and Roger invited the media to their home. They had a plea for the person who took Christie.
All the channels, all 3 or 4 channels were in our living room.
They asked me just to speak from my heart. And I said, you know, if you've got Christie, let her go. She is a forgiving child, and we would forgive you. Please let her go. So it was a matter of begging for her, which I would do anything to get her back.
But days later, a police chaplain showed up at their doorstep.
He said, I'm so sorry to tell you, but we found her body down at the apartment complex.
Her body was found next to a dumpster in the apartment complex, wrapped in a sheet. The man who found it, maintenance man, Don Beatty.
I was 25 years old. I'd been in the business for probably whopping 2.5 years. By chance, we just literally went to his apartment and knocked on the door. And Mr. Beatty was there, looking a bit disheveled, but still answered the door promptly. I can't remember exactly what we had asked him, but he had invited us into his apartment.
Did you notice anything off?
Oh, I noticed a lot of things off.
Jim Fry was a news photographer sent to the scene after Christie's body was found. 36 years later, he's still a photographer for Channel 3 in Phoenix.
Among, the probably thousands of cases you've covered, does this one stick out to you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a whole way of life kind of ceased after her death. A 13-year-old collecting money for her paper route.
Because Don Beatty found the body, he was now being questioned and investigated as a suspect in Christie's death. Jim Fry didn't expect Beatty would talk to the media, but standing at his door with a reporter and a news camera, he let them in.
I also remember him just kind of like sitting at the edge of a sofa when we were talking to him. And then we toured his whole apartment.
He took you on a tour?
Yeah, he basically gave us a tour to show us on how the police department had just trashed his apartment. The entire apartment was covered in graphite. It is the powder that they use for fingerprint making. Literally, countertops, sofa, floors, walls, bathtubs, sinks, everything in this house, in this apartment rather, was just covered in black graphite. And he made some comment about, how this is going to take, he's got to clean this up.
Fry could tell right away. Beatty was annoyed anyone suspected him.
He kept on denying everything. He felt like he was just this victim of circumstances, and I don't know why they're investigating me. I don't know why they came into my apartment looking for evidence. I just don't know why. And he kept that going for the entire interview. I wasn't certain. You thought that there's a possibility that this man is actually telling you the truth.
This was part of that interview with Beatty.
If anybody out there finds a body and they're going to have to go through the same thing I'm going through, well, I feel sorry for that person.
While police continued their investigation, the Fornoffs held Christie's funeral. By this time, Roger and Carol both believed Don Beatty killed their daughter. And as they were embracing and crying with a close friend at the funeral service, Roger Fornoff looked up. And there, in front of him inside the church, was Don Beatty.
I says, don't move. I'm going to show you the killer. He walked down the side aisle across the front of the church. I turned her around and I says, that's the guy. I says, stick with me. Don't let him near Carol, but stick with me. And she did, and he came up and shook my hand.
Yeah, he even signed the book. You know how you sign a book.
Roger and Carol were in disbelief he showed up to the funeral. That disbelief turned to anger when evidence came back days later.
An autopsy revealed she had been suffocated.
Lab results found Christie's blood and vomit inside Beatty's closet. Evidence of rape found on her young body.
We are hoping and praying that she did not experience that before she was choked. And to be full of peace about that, I have to just choose what I believe, that she was not aware.
Adding to incriminating evidence against Beatty was something even more bizarre.
The thing that really sticks in my head about the whole case was albino ferret hair. That was part of the evidence that convicted Donald Beatty.
Why?
Apparently, the previous tenants of that apartment owned an albino ferret. And how anyone ever knew that there was an albino ferret that was inside of the apartment prior to Donald Beatty living there, I don't know. But part of the evidence they found was albino ferret hair inside the closet as well as on the blankets that Christy Ann Fornoff was wrapped.
Don Beatty was arrested for Christie's murder.
It's just really spooky finding out later about the circumstances and realizing that you were in the same apartment with this man.
Where she died.
Where she died.
Oh, I won't run over with my friends to Circle K anymore.
Phoenix was not a place where children got murdered. A whole way of life kind of ceased after her death.
When they're gone at night and you're home alone, lock all the windows and doors.
It changed everybody in Phoenix. Mesa, Tempe, it changed everybody. I mean, kids now, walk closer to their parents when they're in shopping malls. I mean, that ended a whole legacy of paper boys and paper girls making deliveries to your front door.
Nobody's lives changed more than Roger and Carol Fornoff's. Their little girl was gone, allegedly at the hands of a man who tried to deceive them as an ally before his arrest. Their road to justice had only just begun.
It was hard. That first one, the hung jury, was so difficult.
Trial 1 for Don Beatty ended in a hung jury. 2 jurors were not convinced he did it. The Fornoffs mentally prepared to start the trial process all over, but before it could begin, Beatty would slip up in jail to the prison psychiatrist.
He just was talking, and he said, "I didn't mean to kill her, but she was crying for her mother." And the guard went, "What?"
What did you say?
And he said, immediately went to the
judge.
lawyers and said, "Look, he just admitted killing her." So that had to go through another level of, can we admit that? And so, yes, it was admissible.
This time, Beatty was sentenced to death.
Don Beatty absolutely did not want to die.
Decades after he took Christie's life, his life would be taken too. It was May 2011. Beatty was set to be executed.
The inmate is moved the night before to the death cell, which is in the death chamber.
Barrett Marson was the public information officer for the Arizona Department of Corrections that year. He vividly remembers Beatty trying everything he could to avoid execution.
He tried to put himself into a diabetic coma with his last meal. He ordered so much sugar stuff. He had ordered ice cream and cookies and regular Coke and all those things, but we figured out he was really just trying to put himself into a diabetic coma because he did not want to die. And life, even in prison, was better than no life.
But it didn't work. Beatty would live his final minutes in front of an emotional audience.
When you think back to his execution, is there one memory of that day that really sticks out in your mind?
Oh, it really was his last words.
Because his very last words were directed straight to the Fornoff family. The Fornoffs hadn't seen Don Beatty in person since the trial. They sat as a family in front of the execution window, waiting for their daughter's killer to die.
We held hands.
And we said the Our Father, and we prayed for his soul. The curtain opens up, and he looks at us. Each one of us felt he looked directly into our eyes alone. He said, "You will see your daughter in heaven." In his own way, he apologized, and we all felt at ease about it.
And they pronounced him dead. Then they closed the curtain.
I think a lot of people would ask how you found it in yourselves to forgive him.
I think it was only because of the early on feeling when she was missing that night that I know what a forgiving child Christy is. She just always was. She was just unique that way, and I knew that she would want us to forgive the man. If you don't forgive someone,
You're carrying this bag of rocks on your shoulders.
you are hurting.
You've got to let go.
That person doesn't care.
You had for your own...
For your own self, you forgive.
Born from forgiveness was hope, a safe haven and a home for healing at Christie House in the Pines.
We did benefit by opening our hearts and our home to so many people who needed this, that maybe would not have gotten to their next step, maybe without us. So she's big in that, in our lives.
Roger and Carol have hosted a retreat at their home for years for families who have also lost children to homicide.
But it opens up the door for them to see we've not only survived, we've actually made something out of Christie's death. We hope that we are hope for them.
When those families visit, one step inside the house, and they can feel a warmth and spirit through paintings and decorations on the walls. And on every wall, a butterfly. That's not by mistake. Right after Beatty's second trial, Roger and Carol took a trip to Colorado to get away and reflect. The couple decided to take a river rafting trip. It ultimately changed their life.
The
This
butterfly
was
inside.
safe.
He was inside
For it's like a 2.5-hour trip down this river, the whole time.
the whole time.
Gosh, that had to be Christie. She got her wings in heaven, but she needed our help. So she came down and stayed with us. So we found out when we got home that the river's name was the Animus River. I worked with some Hispanic ladies, and I told them the story, and she says, I'm going to tell you what that means. And I said, what? River of the soul or spirit is animus, A-N-I-M-A-S. So in the fall, we took her ashes down with the family, and we put her ashes in the river so that her goodness will help others downriver.
To the Fornoffs, Christie will forever be their 13-year-old little girl. She made them proud every single day, and now Roger and Carol hope they've done the same.
She has enriched our lives even though she didn't live. I mean, that's really amazing. I do think Christie would be proud of us.
I'm journalist Briana Whitney. True Crime Arizona, the podcast, is hosted by me and produced by Sergio Hernandez. You can find our podcast and latest investigations wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also find the video versions on the AZ Family app, Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire.